Hello and welcome to a new edition of Guest of the Day on Radio Romania International. I'm Elena Enache. Today's guest is, as usual, a special one. Her name is Catinca Tăbăcaru, a Romanian-born gallery owner and curator. She is much more than that, but I will let her tell you her story. Welcome, Catinca. Thank you for joining me in the studio today.
Thank you, Elena. It's a pleasure to be here.
Your life story is very impressive. You were born in Romania, then emigrated to Canada at the age of 9. You studied law, but then switched to art. Please tell me more about it.
I like to think that I followed the river of life. There were moments that were very indicative of how to make the first step. And I think even though it's a completely irrelevant to the art story, it's always nice to think about these decisions that you make. And I was in Canada, so I spent 9 years in Romania. I left with my family. We went to Canada, this very kind of wholesome Canadian life. I've always said that Canada made me a socialist and Berkeley made me a feminist. And when I was thinking about where to go to college, it was a time that everybody around my age will remember, where we were always watching Beverly Hills 90210, which took place in California. And I was obsessed with this idea of going to school where Beverly Hills 90210 is. But I was also going to the top high school in Canada, and I had these academic ambitions. And so I applied to the schools in California and ended up getting into the best one, which was Berkeley. We won't talk about Stanford at the moment because that's a no-no for Berkeley people. And so I get into Berkeley and I'm very excited, and I convince my family that they must absolutely make the effort to send me to Berkeley, which at the time was a significant financial effort, emotional effort. I was going to leave the country on my own. I was 18. And I get to Berkeley with my bag full of bathing suits and little dresses so I can play on the beach like in 90210. And for anyone who knows anything about Northern California, Mark Twain once said, there's no winter as cold as summer in California, Northern California, or summer in San Francisco. But it's one of those moments to say that throughout my life, I have allowed myself to feel what the next step would be. And the same way as this silly TV show took me to this incredible institution, so have other things move forward, like moving back to Romania. This is something that I did also on instinct, also on a feeling of, it was almost like velocity. I just had to get here. I had to come back here. And I didn't know exactly why or how. And then I found my way here. And when I arrived, it was really quite scary. I had just spent my time being educated in the U.S. After Berkeley, I went to law school at Duke. I earned this really prestigious degree. I ended up working for the UN, for the Genocide Tribunal for Rwanda. I returned to New York and had this kind of big firm, big life type of existence. I even made the move to leave the law and start an art gallery because it felt like art in the creative field and life that way was more dynamic, was more diverse, was more representative of who I was. I was not this person that was going to sit behind a desk and have questions inputted into me by big partners and me output answers in order to make lots of money. That wasn't very interesting to me. But being part of the art world, working with artists every day, building exhibitions, writing about the ideas that art was about, thinking about what kind of soft power art has, and then especially thinking about what we leave behind. And I think culture and art, and especially the physicality of that, the sculptures, the paintings, even the immaterial, the ideas, they are what we leave behind. They are what we remember from 1,000 years ago. And so it felt very congruent with my identity. I don't know what New York would have made me if I was a Democrat in Canada and a feminist in California. New York probably just made me a really hard worker. That's probably what happened. And there was a point in New York after about 10 years when, when you're in New York, you feel like you're at the top of the world. And it's exciting. And you learn quickly and you move quickly and you're surrounded by all of these interesting people who are also doing the same thing as you are. They're also seeking out this great high of life. But about 10 years in, I started to feel quite small. I started to feel like no matter how good I was, no matter how appreciated my work was, no matter how much I was hitting my goals and I was hitting them, the gallery was growing, considering I had come into the art world from outside of it, from this legal space. What I was doing started doing quite well and started getting into those inner circles.
But anyway, it was a very bold move, to make this switch from a completely different domain to another. Did you have a safety net? Because I know what you did is very inspirational for people who get to know their own vocation later in life, but they don't have the courage to take the leap.
I did have a safety net. I had an emotional safety net, even if I had to struggle for it. I had a financial safety net. I come from a family where I wasn't going to end up without a roof over my head. And so this is not necessary, but it definitely makes things easier. When you can jump into the void and know that you'll only fall so far, for me, it's made it easier to jump. And so it doesn't mean it's not difficult. It doesn't mean that you don't have to encounter the incredible social stigma of leaving a career that I had worked for years to build, of leaving a social status. Because if you take my mother's words, I went from working for the best law firm in New York City to putting some paintings on a wall. And that is for some people maybe too far of a fall or too deep of a fall. I think it also matters a lot where your values are, and what you value in life. And so one of the things that has defined my character over time has been a gutsiness of sorts. I'll just do it. And
like an instinct.
For sure, an instinct, but also you have to have the instinct and then you have to be willing to follow it, right? And I think this is something that, if you want to get into this deep stuff, I can get into this deep stuff, because I'm really into this. What's the best way I've described it before? The best way I've described it is I learned how to do the hard things by skydiving. I was really into skydiving at one point for a very brief point of my life when I afterwards decided I wanted to live and not die. But I spent about a year skydiving. I got my license, and there's nothing like being on the edge of that plane with the open door. And the last thing you want to do in your life is jump out of an airplane. You do not want to jump out of that door.
I'm sure of it.
And you do it anyway. And this is that that impulse that you need in order to make decisions like this. The decision to leave. I have many friends who would love to leave the law, or would love to leave the security of whatever security they're sitting in. And they have the instinct to do it. But you have to also have something else, maybe it's a safety net. Maybe it's recklessness. Maybe it's an incredible belief in the fact that you can follow your instinct. That is what life requires of you. And if you do that, it will go well, whatever well might mean. And I've always had this, or at least I think I've always had this. I probably had to develop at some point. But I came up in a family with a father who essentially, if I got in a fight on the playground, he just told me to hit back. That was very nice.
So he encouraged you.
He encouraged freedom.
He encouraged
to deal with it.
Overcome.
He also encouraged the fact that, what's the big deal? Why you got, some boy pushed you. Why are you crying? Go kick him. This is very important. Right? It's very important to know that you can take control of your situation, and feeling in control of your life, I think, is is something we should all seek to do. And of course, I sometimes feel in control, sometimes I don't. It depends on the day, it depends on the minute sometimes, right? We are so human and so weak and fragile and strong and, definitive at the same time. And so we get into a moment where we really have to decide not what we're going to do, but how we're going to live our lives. And there was a point, and I can't tell you now when, because this question hasn't been posed to me, and I'm already surprised with this interview, and I already love it, by the way, because we automatically got off the easy stuff. But you have to decide how you will live and what you will listen to. Will you listen to the rules? Will you listen to your peers? Will you listen to society? Will you listen to social media? Or will you listen to your
inner voice?
Inner voice. And people can do whatever they want, but it has become crystal clear to me that that inner voice is the only thing that can really guide you. Because it was not logical for me to leave the top of the pyramid, New York City, where I was doing well.
We also saw the movie Suits here, which was very successful, not just Beverly Hills.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Not so different, right? That was the kind of Cinderella story almost in the fall. But coming to Romania was not logical. And when I first came, and this has changed in Romania as well, and I really like this about what's happened in this country in the last 5 years. But when I first came, the question on everyone's tongue was, you traded New York for Bucharest. What? That's not the question anymore. The question is much more neutral now, which is, well, why did you come? And this is a very representative of the psyche of the country and the self-respect that it has developed recently. For me, the answer is very clear. I traded it out of instinct, and I made a space for myself here that is actually more nourishing to my soul and more useful to the world than my little role in New York City.
Maybe the next natural question is, have you regretted it?
No, not at all.
I'm sure the answer is no, because you are very good at what you are doing now. You are very successful. So.
Yeah, but that's not why I didn't regret it. I didn't regret it because, well, I think regret's silly, number one. And why would you ever regret making a cool change to your life? This is another thing that I think is definitive of my generation versus the generations before me. Our parents lived under communism, right? They lined up for that milk. They know what it means to not have bread. We don't. I was alive during communism. I watched my grandfather leave at 4 a.m. to go stand in line for butter. But my life was fine. I was running around in the countryside. It was super safe. I was barefoot and it was great. And I went and stood in line for the cow to give me milk so I can drink it on my way home. I think it was a very utopian life for a small child. We all had the countryside, right? Something that we miss today. And so because we're not scarred by these things, the idea of Romania or of the return to Romania is very different for us, right? When my parents, who had left, 1990, heard that I was going to move back to Romania, I mean, they entered panic mode. But it was one of those instinctual panic modes of, we left there to give you a better life. You built a better life. And 30 years later, what are you doing? Why are you back there? So this is the mentality that exists. My generation, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think, there are many like me, and there is a very interesting return, right? There's a repatriation movement in Romania that is getting close, if not has already overwhelmed the immigration, the exodus, exactly. For me, Romania, while I would like to say, oh, it's my motherland, oh, this is where I come, that's not what it is. Romania is an interesting place to be. It's a place where everything is happening right now, right? Romania is different from year to year. it is in a accelerated growth rate. There's so much space you can do anything. And that's an exciting space, right? It's not so noisy. It's not so busy. It's not so competitive, even though there's enough competition to make it interesting. And the people who are in the game are quite good. And so it has all of these elements for a very interesting life. And so for me, it is that cold. Of course, I enjoy the fact that it's my mother tongue, which I speak much better now than I did 5 years ago. I really like the concept that my child is born of the same earth I was. All of these are very romantic ideas. But in a practical sense, I could have also moved to Harare, Zimbabwe. And it might have not been so different in what I did with the space and what I did with my body in that space and with my influence among my peers and my audience and my community. And so, but Romania is I've traveled pretty widely, and it feels like it's a quite unique point of its development, right? Where Zimbabwe is not. It hasn't quite gotten there yet because development was slower with all the sanctions, and there's not these EU grants to have helped it along over the last decade. And even something like Japan is not, because people are definitely talking about Tokyo being sort of this like new burgeoning space. But Japan has so much weight of culture and history that it moves slower as well. Romania doesn't. Romania's fast. You know, one day everybody is Botoxed and fake lips and drives a Range Rover, and a year later, everybody's a natural beauty and wearing sneakers. It learns so quickly, and that is an exciting space for me.
Maybe it's also the thought that everything is reversible. It's not that during the time of our parents when, you know, if you leave, you leave for good. You cannot return. So we don't have this burden, this fear. And maybe this is important as well.
I think so too. I mean, we're an international culture of change,
exactly.
Right? We've been actually even taught that through propaganda. The only constant is change. There's truth to it, right? We are known to change our careers, and I'm actually old at this point, right? Like I've only changed careers a couple of times in my life. The new generations will probably do it even more, and that freedom is exhilarating.
It is. It is. We go back to New York, where you opened your first gallery. How did you do that?
So much fun. It was so much fun. So imagine that I left the law in October 2009. And I essentially got myself fired. I've actually been fired from every job I ever held. I have terrible upward management. And I remember being called into this office by this, one of the head partners at the firm, and them saying, Catinca, everybody likes you and you're good at what you do, but you don't quite seem to follow the rules. You have to be here at 9 a.m. and you have way too much pro bono work. You have to get your billables up. And these are very strict rules, in my opinion, that didn't really apply to me, according to me. And so they gave me 3 months to fix this. And of course I didn't. And all I did was take care of my clients who I really cared about. And I had an international asylum case, an abduction case, that's like amazing woman who had been ripped off by this bank. I had such interesting cases that I really enjoy doing from a commercial law firm.
It was then when your relationship with Africa started?
Not yet. No, this was 2009. And so I leave the law firm. I get called in again. They say, hey, you're a free spirit. Let us find you a job in entertainment law. And I was like, no, thanks. And so I leave the law firm. I'm like crying and laughing at the same time at this new opening, right? Like how bright the world is when you get fired from a top New York law firm. And I go meet my friends at the Soho House, and we drink a lot of tequila. And so it was a memorable day.
Excitement and fear, a mix. Yeah.
And of course, already the next day, because I still am who I am, I put out the feelers into the world, and I say, hey, you guys know who I am. And I'm looking to move out of the law, but my interests, that, I'm human rights based, totally women's rights based, really into policy. I get this opportunity to start a nonprofit organization, which fast forward, we won't go into the story, but I essentially built a women's rights nonprofit, which is still going today. And it was at the cusp between women's rights, international policy, and art. It dealt with short film. And so I did that. And at the same time, I fancied myself a collector. I had lots of money as a lawyer. And so I thought I'll just intern at an art gallery. And so I did that. And then I kept working as a lawyer on the side because I needed some money. And I think I did like 3 other things. And so I did all of these things for a few years until a friend of mine said, Catinca, you're so good at so many things. Imagine if you just did one. So that was very good advice.
Yes.
And so I started cutting things. Long story short, I had gone quite advanced in the art world for someone who didn't know what they were doing and didn't have a space. And so I go to Miami in 2013 in December. I am part of this art fair that's kind of, a second-tier art fair, third-tier art fair maybe, and I do quite well, and I decide I have to open a gallery. And so I opened this gallery on Broome Street in New York City. And if you want to talk about signs, the address was 260 Broome, and the phone number was 260-2481, which is my birthday.
Wow.
Which was really funny.
Yes.
And so I open the gallery, and I just go all in. I am surrounded by artists, and everyone's got all these ideas, and I just do it. And it works, right? The works are selling, everyone's having fun, and I'm growing, and every year is this accelerator growth. And young galleries, typically, there's different types of young galleries, but the ambitious ones are sort of aiming for these few things at the top, right? If you're thinking about the commercial side, you're aiming to get into Art Basel, the best art fair in the world. I think I got in my year 7, I got in. Then you're aiming to put your artists into museums. So you're really working towards that. You're aiming to be part of international biennials. So you're really working towards that. So the nice thing about the art world is that you have a lot of things to reach for. But there's many ways to get there. So unlike a lot of other industries, you kind of create your own hoops that you might have to run through. You have to prove yourself. But there's a very free path to get there. And this makes it exciting. And so I'm doing all of this on the Lower East Side of New York City, and it's very grungy and cool. And I remember when I opened the gallery, they had the street got closed because there was just hundreds of people. It was so exciting. It's not like that a couple of years in, let's be honest. But the first time, the first opening was big. And so I grow until this point that we started our discussion with, of starting to feel small. At one point, you grow so much that you actually realize how small you are. And I didn't know what I was seeking. I didn't know what I was lacking. But for the first time in a long time, I was lacking something. I could feel it in my body. And it wasn't until coming to Romania and finding my place here, which also took a little while. Transitions are not easy. It takes a lot of courage to make the jump, and then it takes a lot of patience to sort of settle into it, because they're always difficult, and you're always kind of aiming to go back initially, and you think you might have made a mistake. But once I found my place here, that place had to do with this thing that I could contribute that no one else could, because I could see the art world in Romania with outside eyes. I came to Romania and I had this, very beautiful little book of collectors and curators from all over the world. And it occurred to me that a few of them might come and see me here, but most of them won't. But they might come if what was happening here was really exciting for them as well, and it wasn't just me. And so this is when I started galvanizing my friends, essentially, and my colleagues, to do things together. Mm-hmm. And so we did this during COVID, this really interesting performance art event as part of Art Encounters in Timișoara. That went really well. It was 6 galleries. my friend Daniela Palimariu and I started Doi Joi, which is essentially has now become the go-to map for Romanian art galleries. If you go to doijoi.art, you will find every gallery in Romania there with its program and its location and all of its details. And then as the sort of, I think we were 10 galleries at the beginning, we started RAD Art Fair, which was point zero, according to many people, for the Romanian contemporary art scene, where everything changed. The whole scene went from saying, there's no market in Romania. To make it, you have to be outside. Oh, the Romanians don't buy art, and all these silly conversations that people have that are self-defeating. And then we did the art fair, and literally within a day, the paradigm had completely shifted. And now next year will be the 4th edition. It's been more successful each year. It's grown. It now has an international audience as well. And now in Romania, there's institutions opening. People have the confidence to do this. There's a collectors association that's been put together. Everybody has, due to this togetherness, due to this collaboration, everybody has accepted it as such. And everyone now is excited, and everyone thinks, oh, wait, there's something happening here. And so this role of sort of being able to see this and also not belonging, there's something about when you start here and you're from here, you have your own little cliques and cloisters. And because I didn't belong at the beginning, I didn't infuriate any of the little cliques. And so this was my contribution.
So you brought the Romanian art world, and not only Romanian, together. Because from the outside, you saw very well what is lacking here.
I saw very well the lack of collaboration, and everybody was ready. I didn't bring together anything that wasn't ready to be brought together. I essentially gave a reason to come together. And it took everyone to come together, right? It took everyone to build this thing. It took so many efforts and resources and enthusiasm and everyone's willingness to be a part of it. But my personal sense of satisfaction was really and continues to be really significant because I truly changed something. And if you're me, which I don't recommend, if you're me, that gives me a lot of peace. Even though it's probably the most non-peaceful thing I've ever done. It was incredibly difficult. But it worked, and it worked for everyone. And it has supported the growth of so many galleries and artists and collectors and curators, and it's just so exciting to watch it happen. I'm very humbled by everyone's willingness, actually.
Can you tell me a little bit about the work of a curator and the backstage work, to say so?
So when I
the hard stuff that you cannot see.
Well, you can't see any of it. It all looks so easy, right? Yes. I can tell you about it maybe through this exhibition here that we just opened, and so imagine I come to Romania, so it's a very nice follow-up, and this entire time, a part that we haven't talked about, we won't do it now, but I had been working in Zimbabwe a lot. And we had a project there. We built a space there at some point. And so when I came to Romania, we had to bring these Zimbabwean artists in to do shows, to have residencies, etc. They had to come to Romania. And we realized all of a sudden that there was an embassy in Harare. And you think, why is there a Romanian embassy in Harare? I mean, most internationals and most foreigners from Harare have to go to Pretoria in South Africa to handle their visas. Having a Romanian embassy in Harare seems odd.
But also a sign, maybe, for you.
You can imagine. And it wasn't even for me. It was for Raphael Gilbert, who's a curator of the show and who's my partner in the gallery. And we've been together in this since 2015. I started the gallery 2014. And so we realize this and start doing the research. And of course, you happen upon things online, right? You happen upon communist Romania's relationship to Africa. you happen upon its supportive liberation movements, especially in somewhere like Mozambique. And so you start getting these clues that actually the relationship between Romania and the African continent is it goes back quite far, and it's quite significant.
And we know so little about it.
We know nothing about it. Nobody believed me when I first brought this to the Romanian public. They just said that's not true. That didn't happen. It was just propaganda. I was like, well, actually, it wasn't. And so imagine that we start kind of touching on this like 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, and are getting deeper and deeper into it and finding more and more resources and decide to really figure out what was happening and how deep it went. And so we spent 6 weeks in Zimbabwe last year, and essentially we were already quite well infiltrated there. So all of those years, that almost decade of working in the country helped us quite quickly gain the access that we needed to retired generals, to guerrilla fighters from the Liberation Front, almost to the vice president. We actually had a meeting with the vice president set that then got canceled, but he said next time. Vice president that speaks Romanian.
Oh, really?
Really. And so we spent these 6 weeks, and we're just talking to these amazing guerrilla fighters that are such like comrades, and they use the word tovarishu. And we find out that over 4,000 Zimbabweans were brought to Romania between 1975 and 1980 to be trained here in armament, aviation, engineering, and intelligence. And this is all the Zimbabweans essentially consider Romania their main partner in the liberation struggle. And there was a Romania next to Mugabe when they were counting the votes in 1980 when Zimbabwe became a free democratic state, not a free white state. Mm-hmm. And so this is still a year ago now we're talking, right? And a year ago we have recorded firsthand testimonies. We've gone through the archives in Zimbabwe, and this included the National Archives, the Rhodesian Archives, the Herald Knowledge Center, which is the newspaper. We've spent all of this time getting that kind of access. We still haven't even come back to Romania to start building this exhibition. And
which, by the way, has a very interesting name.
It does.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
I can, and Raphael will be better at telling you about it. It's a line from a speech. Have no doubt of the omnipotence of a free people. So I will leave it at that because I actually embarrassingly don't remember the exact name of the man who said it. If you have it written down, that would be helpful. It's in my press release. I just don't remember right now. And it's of course, it holds so much weight.
Powerful.
Right? Speaking of power,
Yes.
Speaking to power.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is more important. It speaks to power, right? And it is also very hopeful. It's what connects Romanians and Zimbabweans. It's what essentially connects the entire global majority.
Mm.
The global majority wants to declare its freedom. And some parts have, some parts haven't. Essentially, we're not free yet, are we? But we're working towards it. And the world is changing, and populations are changing, and mentalities are changing, and the boomers are thankfully dying, as they should, and get out of our way.
So you are the assistant curator?
I am the assistant curator. It's very nice to be an assistant. I like it. So I'm going to take you back for a second to what happens. So we come back to Romania. Raphael spends, and she'd already been looking before, but she spends probably like 6 months finding works by all the Zimbabwean masters all over the world, because Zimbabwe's art world was not consolidated, especially when these masters were alive. Their works from the 60s and the 70s. So we have to find works in England and in Germany, in Zimbabwe as well, of course, in the US, in Canada. And then in response to those, myself and Ana Maria Ștefan work on finding their Romanian counterparts. And of course, in Romania, you get into some of the same issues, but even more, because it's not just finding them, it's convincing them. It's explaining that this is a relevant conversation to be a part of, because most of them are like, what Africa, what? And so, you know, I spent 9.5 hours with Ana Lupaș in Cluj until I found that thing argument that convinced her to be part of the show, which, to be fair, she eventually said, I still don't understand what it's about. I just like you, so I'll do it. And so this answers your questions around how you put together the exhibition, all this invisible work, but also how much work you can really take on the research and intellectual side, you know, all the writing that has gone into this. On top of finding the artworks, we found the experts. We commissioned texts. We're now working on a book for the exhibition. We then, it might sound administrative, but you have to ship all this stuff. And so having to deal with like 50 shipments from around the world is not fun, and it's not cheap. And we were lucky to actually have funding for this from the AFCN. Romania has from the Ministry of Culture
Fund. Yes.
It does have a good funding system for worthy projects, and we did receive a financing from them. And so this was helpful. And then everything has to get here, and then you also have to figure out, how do you put 68 artists into a 250-meter space without it looking like a bazaar? So then the curatorial, that beautiful part of the curatorial part then comes in, which is
the reward.
The reward, the thing where your artistry is, not just your brain, where if you don't have an eye, if you don't have true talent, it won't work. It just won't. It'll be something really interesting. You know, the book might be just as good, but the exhibitions themselves, because we actually have them in 2 spaces, they are elegant and organized and good. You know,
So you have it at Catinca Tăbăcaru Art Gallery.
Yes. And we have
also-
it also at Point. Point is a really interesting art hub where the space itself has a gallery, a restaurant, and a theater. And so it's an opportunity for a very sort of interdisciplinary engagement with the public. And our artists have been part of exhibitions there in the past, and the owners of Point, who are these amazing patrons of the arts, when I spoke to them about this, were very excited and invited us to put up the exhibition there as well. So then this serves as this other piece that's really important to me, which is not just to put on this great exhibition, but to have it be accessible to a public that we don't yet know, right? This is not an exhibition that's just for an art public. This is really discovering there's this like black hole or this blind spot in history that no one knows about. Never mind just Romanians, because that's strange. But the world doesn't know. The world does not know that Romania, as the antithesis of being a colonizer, was actually a liberator. It was anti-imperialist. And that really matters. You know, in those years, Romania had a real role to play. It doesn't matter what the motives were. You can get into all of Ceausescu's motives, whatever, as if leaders in power don't have motives anywhere, anytime. The fact is that it acted as a liberator, and it offered and provided resources to liberation movements all over the African continent so that they may declare their freedom. And that's what this is about. And it's about then, but let's be honest, it's about today. We are still living in a time where settler colonies exist. And so this show is just as relevant then as it is now, and the other way around. It stands for freedom.
So it's a history lesson through art.
It's a history lesson through art. It's a philosophy through art. It's an activism. It's a stance. It's an refusal to accept the status quo. I've actually noticed that our social media is a little more has a little less reach recently, which is interesting.
And does the exhibition include only artwork or also documents or?
It includes the archive, and so not only is a small part of what we found documented physically, and it's on this is also nicely presented, and so you have the documentations of both the first-hand interviews as well as the archives. But if you go to www.secondworldarchive.org, you will have the documents there, and we're still working on uploading everything. It's not complete yet. It will be by the end of the year of what we found so far, but it is the first time that these archives are available to the public. And so we've received permission from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Romania, as well as in Zimbabwe. They can be published. And funny enough, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at MAE, Raluca Vartic's name, who's part of the team, is the first name of anyone who has accessed these documents. So in 50 years, no one's even looked at them. And now we've not only looked at them, but have digitized them and made them available to the public.
That's great. And the gallery will be open until?
The gallery, obviously there will be holidays in the middle, so you just have to check the website and Instagram. But the gallery is generally open Wednesday through Saturday from 12 to 6. And the show itself is open until the end of February. But I encourage everyone to look online, to check the information, to come and visit us, to give us a call if you have to come in at different hours. We're quite available and happy to give guided tours. There will also be many guided tours, especially on Saturdays. So we had a guided tour this past Saturday. And then importantly, for those of you who are in the city now, and I don't know if you'll actually listen to this before this happens, but November 21st and 22nd, we have organized a symposium. And the symposium brings together artists from the exhibition from both Zimbabwe and Romania, as well as very important experts on these topics, both on the very specific topic of Romania and Zimbabwe, as well as the grander topic of Eastern European and African relations. There's this great theory on the fact that upon Mugabe's first visit to Romania with his wife Sally, this really influenced Elena Ceausescu, and her entire demeanor as a leader changed afterwards. So, what you didn't know.
Yeah.
So this will happen. We'll post some of it, but this will happen over the 2 days, this Friday and Saturday, and there's all of these amazing speakers coming together under a topic that's just literally never been explored.
How do you select the artists that you work with?
How do you select your lovers? Like that. Obviously, as a gallerist of now so seasoned over a decade, I have my preferences, I have my interests, I have an eye I've developed, and so I can see a lot quite quickly. But then there's things that matter beyond that, right? There's the human being that you have to deal with on a regular basis, if not a daily basis, often. There's the ethics that they have. So it's more than just the work.
So you have to click with.
You definitely have to click. You have to respect. You have to almost revere, right? Like, if you really think about the relationships that we have with the art world, I don't think the world understands them, or even the art world itself, some of it doesn't understand them, but we are all in service of the artists. Right? They are the creators. The rest of us are just doing our best to support this creation. But we're not critical. What we do will, I hope some of what I do will create some sort of minor legend in the world, in the art world, because not the world really. But the artists themselves, those few of them that really last throughout the ages and that catch the imagination, they're the ones that really leave the legacy behind. And so we're there for them, and not just them, because sometimes it's not just them, right? It's their ideas, it's the the challenges they put forward. And they're world changing, you know.
This was going to be my next question. How important art is in today's world?
I mean, I think it has intrinsic importance. I don't think you can. I think we're so used to valuing art on its financial role or its, I don't know. Art is the thing that defines us. Right? If an alien species came onto Earth, how would they understand us? And it would most likely be through what we've produced artistically, right? Through the music, through the images, through the sculptures, the performances. That's how you can understand the human spirit. You don't understand the human spirit through bank accounts, through business, through war.
Yes, you're right.
That's not how we understand the human spirit. The human spirit is romantic and it's hopeful, even when it's ugly. And art can show you ugly, right? Art is not beautiful.
Not always.
Yeah, it can be, sure. But simple beauty is not enough, right? That's not art. It has to touch you. So that is also important in a world, in today's world, that is so noisy and fast and busy. Art is that moment of reflection, of peace, of conversation. I remember we were in Greece this summer with my family, and we have to go from this like really cute little island where we'd spent a week to this terrible island where, you know, you have to take a flight to get a direct flight. And we have our 3.5-year-old with us, and we get onto this island, and even though historically it was very important roads, a very important space, you get there and it's just covered in tourists and touristy shops, and just this horrible space. The baby's already like getting annoyed. She can barely keep up. And we see there, you know, the museum, the island's museum. We're like, let's just go in there. I'm sure it'll be peaceful. And sure enough, it is, because it costs 10 euros to get in and nobody's going in there. And we get inside, and it has the most magnificent garden you've ever seen, with mosaics from 4,000 years ago. And we spent an hour in there just kind of hanging out and seeing these images, these techniques, these things that actually, what else has lasted 4,000 years? You know, because the buildings we couldn't even see, they were covered in all our crap that they were selling for tourists. But those mosaics were there, and it was another moment in my life when I felt like I was really in the right place and in the right conversation, that I was doing something that really mattered. And it's funny because I'm actually married to a doctor, and he's like, what you do doesn't matter. I actually affect bodies every day. So I guess what matters is very subjective.
You are the mother of a little girl. I'm curious if motherhood has changed you, has changed your sensitivity in relation to how you see art.
It has. I think it's made it a healthier relationship, because before I was a mother to Esme, I was a mother to my gallery and all the artists, and they tend to give you less love. And so having Esme, who is awesome, she's a great kid, it has made me put what I do in perspective, and I dedicate so much passion and time and energy to it. And I'm one of those people that I really drink the juice, you know, like I'm super into it. I really, you probably have to be, I think, to make it, because it's not a very easy world, and it's not a very like financially great world. Later it might be, but at the beginning it's quite hard to get going. And so having the baby sort of created this ultimate priority that set everything just a little bit further back. And the minute it did that, my relationship actually became quite easier with it all. I don't take losses as seriously. I don't take rejections as seriously. it is an art world that is incredibly hierarchical as an industry. And it involves a lot of rejection. I mean, we actually just put in an amazing application for the Venice Pavilion, for the Romanian Pavilion. We didn't even make it into a top 3. And it was all politics. It wasn't even quality. And so as long as those things can happen to you and you just got to brush them off, you can live a healthier life. I mean, life is long. Things don't really matter. Right? There's a few things that matter, and you hope you get those right. And so the baby really helped me get to that space and that place in my own heart and mind. And I think this was a great gift. And then as a person, that's how the way it affected my career. But as a person, it's just so fun. I don't know. So cool. So cool.
Do you have future projects that you are working on, or places where you want to take your exhibitions?
Mm-hmm. I'm at that point right now where you're catching me sort of at like the blooming of this thing I've been working on for so hard for so long. And so I'm in the midst of kind of making this happen. And so this exhibition itself is at the beginning. And so we're now working on putting the book together, on selling it to make it sustainable, on promoting it so that people see it, so people understand it, so we have that feedback. And of course, there is already a mindfulness towards the fact that this is a museum exhibition that should travel to an institution. And so that's, for this exhibition, that's what's happening. As a gallery, always, I spent the first 10 years of the gallery, so I opened in 2014. I spent 10 years of the gallery building and supporting this group of artists and helping them get to their institutional phase, let's call it. And so I have all of that satisfaction now because they're all, the ones that have made it through are receiving these invitations to do museum solo shows, and it's quite prestigious. And so now all of a sudden I'm in my second decade and I'm finding kind of the next crew. The first crew are my friends. And now this next crew are these like really cool and young personalities. There's a group from Romania that's being formed. And then the international counterparts, which are actually heavily African. We have an artist from Somaliland and one from Morocco who are new to the program. And so it's quite exciting to see, this exhibition itself is such almost like a gate that can said to be, I think we'll see the before, have no doubt, of the omnipotence of a free people. God, I love saying that. I think you're going to see the before and after in the gallery's existence. And, we've definitely gone more serious and have these bigger goals that now we've reached a lot of our goals that were about kind of like making it in the art world. And we did 3 Art Basels last year, Miami, Paris, and Hong Kong, and that felt really good. And
so you're just enjoying it now.
So now we're like enjoying it, but then thinking, what's next? And what's next is an interesting question when you've sort of reached something that you've been working for a decade. And I'll probably try to make more money. This might be a second decade purpose. To support these incredibly big things that we're doing. I think that's one of the things that in culture and in art you're always struggling with, that you want to do big things, but they're actually incredibly expensive to do. So how do you focus your time? Because if you focus your time on just the things, how do you pay for them? And if you focus your time on just making money, that's just so boring. And then you don't do anything interesting besides make the money. And so there's this really interesting, for love or money dynamic in the
very
art
complex
world as well. Very complex, but quite exciting to navigate. And actually, I have this like private collectors club thing, and on December 10th we have an event called For Love or Money that will address both life as well as the acquisition of art.
Thank you so much, Catinca, for coming here today. You've been doing some amazing things so far, and I'm sure that many more are coming. It was great having you here, and we are looking forward to having you again here in the RRI studio with your next great project.
Thank you for having me. It was a great discussion. I'm really happy about the things that came out. So thank you for that. It's quite a beautiful surprise.
Thank you.